My name is Jake Miller. I'm 38 years old, and I've spent the last 18 years serving in the U.S. Army. Just 12 weeks ago, I was counting the days, hour by hour, ready to go home after a year-long deployment in Kuwait. I had imagined that moment 1,000 times, stepping through the door, dropping my bag, scooping my kids into my arms, and kissing my wife like the world had paused just for us. But that moment never came. Instead, when I pulled into the driveway of our house in Richmond, something felt off. The porch light was off, the curtains were drawn, and the driveway was empty. No balloons, no little feet running toward me, not even a porch light left on. I told myself maybe they were late picking something up, maybe they just didn't expect me to arrive early. But the minute I opened the front door, the silence hit harder than any explosion I've ever heard. The house was empty, not just quiet, stripped. The family pictures were gone, the sofa, the toys, even the damn doormat with our last name on it. Gone. My boots echoed on bare hardwood floors as I walked into the kitchen, and that's where I saw it. A single sheet of paper on the counter with my name scribbled in red ink, right next to my wedding ring. The note read, "You're not here. So why should we be?" I stood there staring at that note until the words blurred. I don't remember how long I stood in that kitchen. Could have been 5 minutes. Could have been 5 hours. My knees finally buckled, and I dropped onto the cold floor, back against the fridge, eyes wide open, but not seeing anything. I wasn't angry. I wasn't crying. I just sat there. In that moment, I realized something terrifying. I didn't have a home anymore. I didn't have a family. And for the first time in my life, I didn't know what to do next. Before everything went sideways, I really believed I had the kind of life people envied. I had a wife named Lauren, who used to bring me lunch at the base on her days off, and 2 kids who would scream "Daddy" like it was the greatest word in the world. We lived in a 2-story home just outside Richmond, not fancy, but it had a swing in the backyard and crayon drawings taped all over the fridge. I thought I was doing everything right, working hard, showing up, putting my family first in every way I could. When I got my deployment orders, I remember sitting down with Lauren on the back porch one night. I told her I'd set up the life insurance. I'd updated my will, written letters to the kids just in case. I even gave her power of attorney so she wouldn't have to deal with red tape if something happened. She cried, said she was proud of me, said she'd wait. I believed her. With everything in me, I believed her. I told her where the safety deposit box was, where I kept our savings, all the account info. I wanted to make sure if I didn't make it back, they'd be okay. I left in May. By June, the phone calls slowed. By July, she'd stopped answering altogether. She said she was busy, the kids were adjusting, school was starting soon. I didn't want to push. I told myself it was just the stress of parenting alone, of holding down the fort. But I started to feel it. Something was off. Her voice was different. There was no warmth in it. It was like talking to a coworker who didn't really want to be on the call. One day in October, I asked a buddy back home to swing by my place, just to check. He called me after pulling into the driveway and said, "Jake, I think your house just got sold. There's a moving truck and a realtor's sign." I thought he was mistaken. I emailed Lauren, messaged her, nothing. I even called the mortgage company. She had sold it. I don't know how she did it so fast. Maybe she'd been planning it before I even left. I just remember staring at my laptop in the barracks, the screen blurring from the heat of my own breathing. Every cent we'd saved, gone. kids' college funds, the retirement we were building, the emergency stash I had from 3 tours in the desert. She took everything. Not a word, no explanation. I don't even think she thought twice about it. She didn't leave a letter for me or a note for the kids to send their love. She just erased me, like I'd been a placeholder for something better, and now she'd found it. The worst part? I wasn't even angry at first. I was embarrassed, humiliated. I kept thinking, how did I not see this coming? How could I be so blind? I played every moment over in my head, searching for signs I must have missed. I told myself maybe I deserved it. Maybe I hadn't been there enough. Maybe deployment after deployment had finally broken something in her I couldn't fix. But no matter how I tried to make it make sense, one truth kept rising to the top. I had trusted the wrong person with everything that mattered. And now, I had nothing. After the shock wore off and the paperwork caught up with me, I packed what little I had into a duffel and started sleeping in my truck. It was a black F-150 that had seen better days, but it ran and the heat worked. I parked behind an old gas station a few blocks from base where the lights stayed on and no one asked questions. During the day, I still showed up at the armory, pressed uniform, polished boots, followed every order like my life depended on it. I didn't want anyone to see me unravel. I kept a gym bag in the back seat with fresh shirts and wet wipes, and I shaved in the bathroom of the 24-hour diner down the road. I didn't want pity. I didn't want questions. I just wanted to make it through the day without breaking down. Nights were harder. That was when the silence got loud. I'd lie there in the cab, staring at the ceiling, thinking about my kids, wondering if they missed me, wondering if they even knew where I was. I kept a picture of them taped to the visor, and sometimes I'd talk to it like they could hear me. It was pathetic, but it was all I had. There were nights I'd wake up drenched in sweat from dreams I couldn't shake. Others I barely slept at all. One Thursday, while grabbing a cup of burnt coffee at base, I heard someone say my name. I turned and saw Marcus Green. We'd served together in Iraq. He looked different, but his voice hadn't changed. He clapped my back like we'd just walked out of the wire together. I didn't mean to say much, but somehow it all came out. The deployment, the house, the note, the truck. Marcus didn't flinch. He just listened. Then he handed me a key and said, "Come stay at my place until you figure it out. No lectures, no questions, just an open door." That night, I slept on his couch, and for the first time in weeks, I didn't wake up in a panic. The ceiling fan hummed overhead. His dog curled up at my feet. I didn't cry, but my chest felt lighter, like someone had finally lifted the weight, even if just a little. Over the next few days, Marcus told me about his Aunt Clara, said she raised him after his parents died in a car wreck, said she was tough as nails and smart as hell. Lived alone now in an old farmhouse an hour out. He said she could use a hand with the house and maybe the company. I didn't have a plan. I didn't have anything to lose. So I nodded, and just like that, a new door cracked open. Not wide, but just enough to let in some light. The farmhouse sat at the edge of a narrow road, tucked between 2 rolling hills and framed by a row of stubborn oak trees. It looked like the kind of place time had stepped around. The porch creaked under my boots as I followed Marcus up the steps, suitcase in hand, and unsure if this was a lifeline or just another stop before things got worse. Clara opened the door before he could knock. She was smaller than I expected, wiry frame, silver hair pinned back neat and tight. Her eyes were the kind that studied, not stared, and I could feel her sizing me up from the second I stepped inside. She nodded once like she already knew everything she needed. The house smelled like wood polish and old books, and there was a quiet to it that wasn't empty. It felt kept. It felt like someone still cared. She didn't ask for explanations, just offered a guest room and told me where the towels were. Her voice had weight to it, clipped but calm, like someone who didn't waste time repeating herself. That night after dinner, while Marcus loaded the dishwasher, Clara and I sat on the back porch. She lit a cigarette with hands that didn't shake and asked me what branch I was with. When I told her Army, she just nodded. Then she leaned forward, looked me dead in the eye, and said something I've never forgotten. She said, "I've known men like you. I used to type their letters home. I watched them walk into war with straight backs and nothing but their name stitched to their chest. And when I look at you, I see it. That fire, discipline, honor. Not many carry that anymore." I didn't know what to say. No one had called that out in me before, not even my own family. All I could do was nod, hold her gaze, and try not to let my throat close up. Before she went inside, she said one more thing. "The room at the end of the hall downstairs stays locked. I don't open it, neither should you. That was the only rule." She didn't say it like a threat, just a boundary carved deep. I respected that. Over the next week, I settled in, fixed a broken gutter, chopped wood for the stove. Clara didn't say much, but every now and then I'd catch her watching me from the kitchen window, eyes thoughtful. That house was old, but it held a rhythm. There was peace in the creak of the floorboards and purpose in the work. And even though I still carried a knot of hurt I couldn't shake, for the first time in a long while, I didn't feel like I was just surviving. I felt noticed. I felt placed. It happened on a Tuesday morning. Clara had been quiet at breakfast, said her chest felt tight, but nothing she hadn't felt before. By noon, she was on the floor. I called 911, rode in the ambulance, and waited outside the ICU with a knot in my gut that wouldn't loosen. Before they wheeled her in, she pressed a small envelope into my hand, her voice barely a whisper. "If I don't come back, open the room." She survived the first night, but by morning, she was unconscious. I drove back to the house in silence. The key was inside the envelope, along with a note. "Thank you for showing up, for keeping your word." Inside the locked room, dust hung thick in the air. A single desk sat beneath a window, and in the drawers were folders, neatly labeled, dozens of them. There were documents I didn't fully understand at first. Shareholder certificates, investment reports, statements dating back to the early 80s. Names like Lockheed Martin, Microsoft, Raytheon. My hand started to shake. In the corner sat a safe. I opened it with the combination Clara had scribbled beneath the key. Inside was a handwritten will, notarized, dated 5 months ago. It left everything to me. All of it. The house, the land, the stock portfolio. According to the summary page, the estimated value was just over $14 million. I sat down on the old armchair, still holding the paper, and stared at the wall. I didn't cry. I didn't smile. I just kept asking myself why. Why me? 2 days later, Clara passed in her sleep. Peaceful, the nurse said. I found her final letter in the bedside drawer, addressed in that same tidy handwriting. Jake. That was all it said on the outside. Inside, it explained everything in 4 pages that changed how I saw her, and, honestly, how I saw myself. She wrote about her time in the Army, said she'd spent 25 years typing memos, organizing deployments, listening to men cry on the phone when their wives left them, and watching others walk into war with fear in their eyes and courage in their bones. She said she never married, never had kids, because she'd already mothered more soldiers than she could count. She put her earnings into stocks when no one else believed in them. She said it was her way of building something that lasted longer than she would. Then she wrote this: "You remind me of them, of the ones who showed up even when it hurt, who kept their boots polished even when the world kicked them down. You didn't come here looking for help. You came here carrying honor in silence. I saw it in your hands. I saw it in your eyes. That fire never left you." I read that letter 3 times before I could breathe again. It wasn't just money she left me. It was belief. It was recognition. In a world that had thrown me out like garbage, Clara looked at me and saw something worth keeping. And that, more than anything, brought me back to life. The letter came 3 weeks after Clara's funeral. No return address. Just my name scrawled in handwriting I hadn't seen in over a year. Inside was a short note. She'd heard about the inheritance. She was sorry, said she made a mistake, asked if we could talk. I sat with it for a long time, not angry, just quiet, like a memory that didn't hurt anymore, just passed through. I met her at a diner halfway between her new apartment and Clara's house. She looked nervous, older somehow. I listened to every word she had to say. I didn't interrupt. When she was done, I told her I forgave her. Not because she deserved it, but because I needed to. I said I would always care about the kids, that I'd make sure they never went without, but we weren't getting back together. That chapter was closed. She didn't argue. I think part of her already knew. We talked a bit about the kids, school, soccer. I promised to set up a trust for their future. And then I stood, paid the check, and wished her well. That was it. No raised voices, no long speeches. Just 2 people finally done pretending to be who they weren't. A month later, I bought back the house she sold. The one with the swing in the backyard and the crayon drawing still faintly marked on the garage wall. It took some paperwork, but it felt right. I didn't move back in. I turned it into a transitional home for veterans coming back with no place to go. I named it Clara's house. Some days, I sit on the porch and watch the wind move through the trees. I think about everything I lost, everything I gained, and how sometimes the people who save us don't wear uniforms or share our blood. They just see something in us when no one else does, and that changes everything.